Hey, hope your spring is going well. I've got a new lens to talk about today. A TTArtisan 100mm 2.8 tilting and shifting 2x macro lens kindly sent to me for review by Gear, which came nicely packaged with embossed details and branded tape. Now, this will be a short review. I haven't spent a lot of time with this lens, so I can only cover my initial impressions and limited experience with it in the field so far this spring. And inside the box, you'll find the lens and this little bit, a cold shoe mount. Not something I'm used to getting with a lens, but we'll get into that later. And here it is, the first tilting and shifting macro lens I've had access to. Initial impressions are that it's pretty heavy and solidly built. It feels nice in the hand with an all-metal body, and it's got a big lens cap with a surprisingly snug fit that I wouldn't worry about falling off. This is a full-frame, fully manual lens with no weather sealing, and my review copy is for the APS-C Fuji X mount, but the lens is available for most major camera mounts. Sorry, Pentax. The focus ring turns really smoothly, with maybe a bit of a short focus throw for video or studio work, but personally I like being able to quickly twist all the way down to 2x magnification in the field. The aperture ring is nice and clicky and will get you from f2.8 to f22. Ooh, 12 aperture blades should produce clean-edged circular bokeh. In terms of design and size, it's similar to Laowa's 100mm 2x macro, if a bit bigger. And I know full-frame lenses run a bit large, but my biggest complaint with Laowa's 100mm was its weight, finding that 730 grams or so cumbersome in the field. And I regret to inform you this TTArtisan is even heavier and more unwieldy at nearly 900 grams with the caps on. Oh, and before I forget, I should mention what these threaded holes are all about. They're for this, that cold shoe mount that came with the lens, which screws securely to any of the threaded holes around the tip of the lens. That's a kind of an odd location. I've never seen a hot shoe or cold shoe mount right at the tip of the lens like that. But people with like wireless flashes, some of the wireless macro flashes, clipping it into there would actually be pretty nice. Alright, let's mount it to a camera, which immediately reveals that all those knobs and screws on the sides might interfere with a grip any larger than mine. And speaking of all those knobs and screws, what do? Well, first, this pin here releases the lens to be rotated 90 degrees, locking nicely into set steps. Next, this knob releases the lens to be tilted up or down by 8 degrees, with a knob on the opposing side allowing you more control over the tilt, although I usually just grab and tilt the whole lens by hand. And finally, this is the release for the shifting capability, allowing you to shift the lens 6mm to the left or right, or up and down, or along whatever axis you have rotated the lens to. Okay. Why have these tilting and shifting features though? Let's shoot an angled view of this toy car to illustrate. With the lens in its default position, pointed straight ahead, the focal plane, lens plane, and image plane are all parallel to each other, resulting in a plane of focus that can only capture one wheel of the car at a time. But by rotating the lens and tilting it to the left, this tilts the focal plane, creating a diagonal plane of focus, and even at the same aperture of f2.8, we can now get both wheels in focus. shallow depth of field is an obstacle inherent to macro photography, so this is a super helpful way of getting more bits in focus without stopping down or focus stacking. Now that's all very cool, but is it sharp? Let's test how it compares to the Laowa 100mm, one of the sharpest macro lenses I've used. I'll be focusing in on the left eye of Hideo Noguchi on this 1,000 yen banknote. I did my best to get the bill as perpendicular as possible to the optical axis, but was a bit off, and the bill was a bit wrinkly, so deal with it. At the max magnification of 2x and wide open at f2.8, there's great center sharpness, even if the super shallow depth of field only caught a thin slice. By f5.6, we get a bit more depth of field. By f11, diffraction is noticeably softening the image, and at f22, image is nearly unusable. But this is just physics. All lenses succumb to diffraction at narrow apertures, especially at high magnifications. Compared to the Laowa, it holds up surprisingly well, being just about as sharp to my eyes, although maybe just a hair softer. Alright, let's get outside and look for some bugs. Here's a beautifully patterned forest tint caterpillar with markings that kind of look like little penguins to me. Again, I should note that this lens is not weather sealed, but that hasn't stopped me from taking it out on rainy days with an umbrella. The bokeh is really nicely rendered, making for smooth, dreamy backgrounds. Sometimes I need more than 2x magnification in the field for super small subjects like springtails, but opening the lens up a bit and cropping has allowed me to document this springtail courtship behavior and this orange plump gummy of a springtail traversing a lichenous landscape. Beneath some mushrooms on a fallen branch, a globular springtail. Here, a sub-millimeter earth mite excretes a bit of fluid out of its dorsal anus. An elegant and pale ghost spider resting on a leaf. Maybe a male based on those swollen palps. Sometimes I am restricted compositionally when trying to get as much of a bug in focus as I can, having to factor in just how thin my depth of field is and approaching subjects accordingly, changing my angle of approach, trying to maximize the amount of the subject's body that will fall within the focal plane, causing me to avoid shooting certain angles of bugs. But now with this lens, I can change the orientation of the focal plane. Something I never considered an option before, and honestly I haven't really been tilting or shifting the lens much in the field, and most of the shots in this video were shot untilted, unshifted, with the lens straight ahead, unless otherwise noted. And in the moment I just want to creep up on the bug and enjoy my time outdoors, not wanting to factor in the optimal focal plane or fuss about with extra knobs. It's sharp, but not any sharper than existing and lighter lenses that are already out there. So if you have a smaller sensored mirrorless body, I might consider other options. That said, if you're looking for tilting and shifting features in a 2-to-1 macro, this would be your best and only option. And if you don't have a true macro lens yet, this would be an awesome introduction to some higher magnifications. 2-to-1 gets you a lot of magnification and would probably be more than enough for most. Chromatic aberration seems minimal, and I wouldn't worry about it. Quick video test didn't show a lot of longitudinal chromatic aberration to my eyes either. It's nicely built, but too heavy in this age of little mirrorless camera bodies, and the knobs can be a bit uncomfortable and crowd larger camera grips. As a tool, it does what advertised, and it does it very well. It's sharp, handles well, and the tilting and shifting features are easy enough to access and use. Just be aware of its size and consider the other options available to you if you're just looking for a simple macro to take out on a bug hunt. Wrapping up, if you'd like to learn more about this lens, head to TTArtisan.com or pergear.com, who supplied this lens for review. To follow my work, follow me on Twitter @ThomasShahan, or subscribe to this channel for more videos on macro photography and spiders. Thank you for your time and hope you have a fun summer.